Yes. Good evening, students. Welcome to the session. Have you revised the last class where we started with the tax deduction at source and we had finished the charitable trust? In case you have any questions concerning any of these topics, please feel free to ask me. Yes. Any doubts till now before we proceed ahead? Today we are going to extensively discuss on the TDS aspect only. If you have any questions, please do feel free to let me know. Yes. Any questions, any doubts so far, students? Okay, if there are no questions, what we will do is we'll just start with this class. So we had done section 192 of the Act, isn't it? What was that about, students? Yes, what was 192 about? Yes, please, faster. Yes, I'm not getting any answers. It was on TDS only? Yes. TDS on which payment? Salaries, isn't it? This was TDS on the salaries, right? Wherein we discussed it would be deducted at the rates in force. Yes or no, right? So that was the TDS on salary. Now what we are going to start with is the students, I would need the answers. Please be participative. Section 192A, which is TDS on premature withdrawal from the employees provident fund. Okay. Good evening, Satish Kumar. Yes. So TDS on the withdrawal of the premature withdrawal of the EPF. So under the EPF Act, which is there, the employees and employers both contribute the equal contribution, right? Now, these are the recognized provident fund or the statutory provident fund, as you may call it. Now, under the Income Tax Act, where do you see, students, the provisions regarding the employee provident fund? Any idea? In which part of the Income Tax Act do you see the provisions regarding the EPF?
Ma'am, in deduction?
In deductions, okay. Satish, in PGPP, okay. So students, beyond this, if you see the Act of the Income Tax, which is there, the Income Tax Act, which is there, it does not only have the sections, okay. The sections, of course, are contained in the chapters, in different chapters, but at the end of all the chapters, there are schedules to the Income Tax Act. The fourth schedule to the Income Tax Act talks about the recognized provident fund. Are we getting this particular point? So, the recognized provident fund, which you see with respect to the salaries, which you see with respect to the deductions under PGBP, that the employer contribution which he makes, the employee contribution which he makes, right? All of that is spoken about under the Schedule 4 of the Income Tax Act, which talks about what are the conditions to be satisfied by the recognized provident fund. What are the employer's contribution? What are the employee contribution? So when it says that the employee contribution which is there shall be entitled to the deduction under ATC, that is provided over there on. Are we clear? So there it talks about the withdrawal of the accumulated balance. right? So where any employee withdraws the balance from the provident fund before the expiry of the specified tenure which is there, this amount will become the taxable amount. So you can exclude the balance of the EPF when you withdraw if you have rendered the service for a period of 5 years or more, or the employee has not been terminated, or the employee has not been terminated by way of, let's say, ill health, by way of closure of the employer business, or the employee has transferred the balance to another new employer. So in any of these cases, the withdrawal of the amount from the accumulated balance in the PF will not be considered in your total income. However, if you withdraw the amount for any of the other reasons, then the tax would be payable on that particular withdrawal. Are we getting this particular point? So the fourth schedule, under that the rule 8 talks about the withdrawal of the accumulated balance or from the RPF, from the recognized provident fund. And it says that if the employee does not continue in the service for 5 years and before that only he withdraws it. So then in that particular case, the withdrawal shall become taxable. So see, when you also will clear your CA and you may go for the employment, so then in that particular case, you may have to compulsorily opt for the provident fund. Now, once you opt for provident fund and let's say within the 5-year period, if you have not completed the 5-year period with one employer, you withdraw it, then it will become the taxable. And in that case, the TDS will have to be deducted. The TDS will have to be deducted on the withdrawn amount. Are we clear about this? So who will deduct the TDS? The trustee of the Provident Fund Trust. Provident funds are usually maintained in the trust. In case it is with the employer, then the employer will deduct it. Are we clear? So 192(8) provides for the TDS at the rate of 10%. So who will be my deductor? The trustee of the EPF trust or the employer, right? My deductee will be the employee, right? The TDS is at the rate of 10%. Are we clear? So where there is a premature withdrawal, then in that particular case, the TDS will be deducted at the rate of 10%. And what is going to be the timing of TDS? This will be on payment. So not on credit, it will be on payment. And what is the threshold which is given over here? So the threshold will be if the withdrawal is greater than rupees 50,000. Withdrawal is greater than equal to rupees 50,000. So let's say there is an employee of the particular company ABC Limited. Now this employee resigns within a period of 2 years and withdraw the EPF. So in that case, the employer will deduct the TDS at the rate of 10% if the withdrawal amount is more than 50,000. However, if the employee would have rendered the services, let's say the employee would have stayed in the company for 7 years and then he would have withdrawn the amount, will there be a TDS obligation? Yes or no?
No, ma'am.
No. So in that case, the TDS will not be applicable. Are we clear? Yes or no?
Excuse me, ma'am.
Yes.
Ma'am, one question is there. Is any form is available so that TDS is not deducted?
Any form as in?
मैम लाइक एफडी विद बैंक्स होती है जो
Yeah.
उसमें हम एक फॉर्म सबमिट कर देते हैं बैंक को
Yeah.
कि हमारी
Form
अदर इनकम
13.
नहीं है.
Yeah. 15G, 15H.
यस मैम, तो इस केस में
Yes.
भी कोई ऐसा फॉर्म है कि हम लोग उसमें टीडीएस ना डिडक्ट हो?
So, see, that form is applicable if it is with respect to you do not have any income more than the basic exemption limit. So, that is applicable for certain sections. So, there is this section called Section 197 of the Income Tax Act. Now, if you go to 197 of the Income Tax Act, it says that this form 15G, 15H can be filed if the assessee does not have the income which is more than the basic exemption limit. Now, there 192A is not a covered section. So, therefore, you cannot ask for a lower deduction with respect to 192A. Okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Any other question? Yes? Okay. Good evening, Jenny. Fine. So, then let's proceed towards the next section. Next is section 193. 193 is interest on securities. So again, who is the person responsible for deduction of TDS? So here the deductor will be any person. Fine. Let me again reshare the screen because I want you to see the act also simultaneously. One second. Yes. So 193 interest on security, it says the person responsible for paying to a resident. Okay. So here deductor will be any person, deductee will be only a resident. See under 192 if you see it said any person. So payer can be any person which includes a resident and non-resident. Even the payee will be any person which includes a resident and non-resident. Whereas under 193 it says the person responsible for paying to a resident. Are you understanding the difference? So that's why if you remember, I told you under 192, when one non-resident, when a foreign company is hiring an employee in India or even hiring an employee outside India. So a foreign company, let's say, is hiring a US citizen for working in India to undertake the services for the foreign company in India. Let's say the foreign company has a client in India, and for that he's hiring a US employee to perform the services in India. So the salary which will be paid by the foreign company to the US employee with respect to the services that US employee is rendering in India, on that the TDS under 192 will become applicable. But if you see under 193, the deductee is clearly mentioned as a resident. Okay. Now, what is here the TDS applicable on? So, specified income. Is what? Interest on securities. Interest on securities is the covered income over here. Now, interest on securities meaning what? What kind of securities are we trying to say over here? Yes. So interest on any debentures, isn't it? Will be covered. Interest on any kind of securities that may be, kind of any bonds which are there. So any kind of securities which are there will be covered if the interest is paid thereon. Now, what is the rate of TDS over here? Deduct the income tax at the rates in force. Deduct the income tax at the rates in force. Now, what is the rate in force over here under 193? It will be the 10%. The Act says under 193, the rate shall be 10%. The Finance Act, the rate comes from the Finance Act with respect to this 193. So here the rate will be at the rate of 10%. So the rates in force will be 10%. So the TDS will be at the rate of 10%. It says at the time of credit of the income to the payee or at the time of payment. So the timing of TDS will be, if you see under 192, the timing of TDS was on payment. Here it says credit or payment, whichever is early. Are we clear? Yes or no?
Ma'am, this
Okay.
is only about government securities because everywhere is looking like national savings certificate, national
Yeah.
development. It's related to government securities only.
Yes. So here it basically not only the government security, it means the interest on debentures, interest on securities, which are basically issued by a company or a corporation also, but which should be established by a central, which should be established under a central or the state act. So we are coming on that point. Okay. Any other questions, students? Yes or no? Okay. Now, here, what does it mean by interest on securities? So, interest on securities, if you see, here means that the interest on the bonds issued by the government or interest on the bonds which are issued by a company which is established under the Central Act. Are we clear? Now, if you see under the proviso which is given over here, if you read the proviso over here, what does it say? That no tax shall be deducted from these kind of bonds which are mentioned over here. Any interest payable on 4.5% national defense bond, where the bonds are held by individual not being a non-resident. Any interest payable to an individual on 4.5%, 4.25% on the national defense loan, any interest payable on national development bonds, any interest on the 7-year national savings certificate, any interest payable on debentures issued by any institution or authority or any other public sector company or cooperative sector bank. So any interest which is payable on the debentures issued by the public sector company or the cooperative bank as the central government by notification specifies. So central government issues the notification with respect to some covered debentures over here on which the TDS will not be applicable. So what has the central government issued as a notification with respect to this? So the RECL bonds. What are RECL bonds used for? Do you remember Power Finance Corporation Limited bond, IRFCL bond, Indian Railway Finance Corporation Limited bond? On this, there will not be any TDS. But what are these used for? Yes, Satish Kumar, very good. Capital gain exemption under section 54 EC. So if you want to claim the exemption under 54 EC, you are required to deposit the amount up to rupees 50 lakh, right? In the Power Finance Corporation Limited bond or the Indian Railway Finance Corporation Limited bond. So if any interest is paid on those bonds, there will not be any TDS. Are we clear? Then any interest payable on 6.5% gold bonds. There are 7% gold bonds. So they have exempted that if what they say is did not in either case exceed 10,000 rupees. So if the interest does not exceed the 10,000 rupees, any interest payable on any security of the central government or the state government. So any interest payable on security of the central or the state government, again on that TDS will not apply. Provided that nothing in this clause shall apply. So what they are trying to say, see, this is an amendment which is applicable for your attempts. If you see, this is written in italics with this 84 on the top, which means that this is the amendment which has been introduced by Finance Act 2024. Are we clear? So what they are saying is that this particular exemption will not be applicable, which is interest payable on any security of the CG or SG, will not be applicable to interest exceeding 10,000 rupees during the financial year on 8% saving bonds, 7.75% saving bonds or floating rate saving bonds or any other security which may be notified by the central government. Are we clear? So what they are trying to say is that the tax will be deducted. The TDS will be deducted in respect of interest payable on the 8% saving bonds or 7.75% saving bonds if the interest exceeds rupees 10,000. Are we clear? Yes or no? Then what are the other exemptions? Any interest payable to an individual or HUF who is a resident in India on any debenture issued by a company which is in which the public are substantially interested. What does it mean by a company in which public are substantially interested? Yes, what does it mean? The company in which the public is substantially interested. Yes, students. Widely held company? Yes. Yes, Satish. Very good. So it means a public company, a widely held company. Widely held company means what? A public company. A company in which public is substantially is interested is listed company basically. Or a subsidiary of a listed company. Okay. So we are talking about the listed company. So in that case, if the interest amount exceed 5,000 rupees, then in that case, on that the TDS will be applicable. If it is less than 5,000, then TDS will not be applicable. Any interest payable to the LIC in respect of any securities held by it, any interest payable to the GIC in respect of the securities owned by GIC, and any interest payable to any other insurer. Any interest payable to a business trust in respect of securities by the SPV. So if you remember in the REIT, I had told you where we had drawn this chart where I told you that any interest which will be paid by SPV to the business trust on the securities or the bonds which are there with the SPV, on which the interest will be paid to the business trust by the SPV, on that the TDS under 194A will not be applicable because this will be a pass-through income. Are we clear? Yes or no? Fine. Shall we move on to the next section? Yes. Everybody, is this clear? 193? Okay, perfect. Now let's move on to the next one. Section 194. Dividends. So 194 is talking about the dividend. Let's move to the dividend. The principal officer of an Indian company or a company which has made the prescribed arrangements for the declaration and payments of dividend, including the dividend on the preference shares within India. So, who is the deductor? Principal officer of the company distributing the dividend. Principal officer of an Indian company or a company which has made the prescribed arrangements for declaration and payments of dividend in India. What does this mean? What does the second point mean? We can understand what is an Indian company, but what does it mean by a company which has made the prescribed arrangements for the declaration and payment of dividend in India? What do we mean by that?
Ma'am, I think if a foreign company issue a dividend and they pay in India.
Okay. But how do we know that it has made the prescribed arrangements for declaration of dividend in India? No, Satish, it's not relating to the poem. So any company which has made the prescribed arrangements for the declaration and payment of dividend within India is called a which kind of company? Yes?
Intermediate?
No? It's a domestic company. Yes, Satish, very good. It's a domestic company. What is the meaning of domestic company under section 220? Under section 222A, which says domestic company means an Indian company or any foreign company which has made the arrangements for declaration and payment of dividend within India. Right? So what do we mean by a company which has made the arrangements for declaration and payment of dividend? It means that the company maintains a share register at its principal place of business in India. The AGM for passing the accounts and for declaring the dividends are held in India, and the dividends are paid to the shareholders in India. Are we clear? Then only we can say that the foreign company has made the arrangements for declaration and payment of dividend within India. So any dividend by the Indian company or a foreign company which has made the arrangements for declaration of dividend within India is covered under 194. Okay? Then it says, shall, before making any payment by any mode in respect of any dividend, or before making any distribution or payment to a shareholder who is resident in India, meaning here my deductee will be resident shareholder. Right? My deductee will be resident shareholder. What is going to be my timing of TDS? Payment or distribution, whichever is earlier. Right? Of any dividend within the meaning of subclause A, B, C, D, E, F of clause 22 of section 2, meaning 222A to 222F. What is 222A, students? What is 222A? Yes. What was 222A, B, C, D, E, F? What was it? Distribution of assets, yes. Very good, Satish. What is 222B? Yes, Ginny. Distribution of assets is 222A. What is 222B? Distribution of the debentures or bonus shares to preference shareholders. Yes, Ginny, good. What is then 222C? Satish Kumar, yes, all of these are deemed dividend. What is 222C? The answers should come fast. Distribution on liquidation. Yes, good, Ginny. What is then 222D? Distribution on liquidation. What is the second implication? Let me see who recollects. 222C is the one impact on distribution on liquidation. There is also a second impact on distribution on liquidation. What is that second impact?
मैम समझ में नहीं आया एक्चुअली क्वेश्चन.
The question is on the distribution on liquidation. If the assets are distributed on liquidation, there are two impacts. One is it will be considered as deemed dividend under 222C. What will be the second impact? Yes, Mitali, reduction of capital is 222D. What is the second impact of distribution on liquidation? No, Satish, 45.4 is for the distribution of the capital asset by the partnership firm on the dissolution. I'm talking about the domestic company. 46A, very good, Ginny. Yes, 46A is applicable. Yes, very good. Then what is 222E? What is 222E? That's very easy. Advances, loans or advances to shareholder. Yes, Satish, very good. Then last, what is 222F? Yes, Mitali, payment of loan to shareholder. Yes. What is 222F?
Buyback of shares related.
Correct. Yes. Very good. So last one is added in the Finance Act 2024. So again, if you see, it's written in italics and there is a 86 clause over there which says that it has been introduced with effect from 1/10/2024. Because prior to that, prior to 1/10/2024, there used to be what? There used to be on the buyback of shares.
मैम प्लीज एक बार फिर से क्वेश्चन बोलेंगे.
There used to be on the buyback of shares. What was the tax impact on the buyback of shares prior to 1/10/2024?
It will be exempt in the hands of shareholders and taxable to the company.
Correct. There used to be the buyback tax applicable, right? In the hands
Yes.
of the company undertaking the buyback.
Yes.
So that's the reason why this is applicable with effect from 1/10/2024. So even TDS under 194 will be with effect from 1/10/2024. So prior to that, there will not be any TDS on the buyback. Okay. Then it says, provided that no such deduction shall be made in the case of a shareholder being an individual if the dividend is paid by a company by any mode other than cash and the dividend distributed or paid during the financial year does not exceed 5,000 rupees. So what is the threshold which is given over here? This is the threshold
5,000.
only for individual shareholder. which is rupees 5,000. For other than individual shareholder, for like if the one company is holding the investment, another company, and the company is receiving the dividend, then there is no threshold. So there will be TDS from 1 rupee or onwards for other than individual. Okay. Then it says that yes.
Ma'am, this 5,000 is for per year or one time? Like some companies pay after interval or more than one time.
No, it is for per year.
Okay, ma'am.
So it says dividend or the aggregate of the dividends. So it's for the year. You have to combine all the dividends during the year. Okay. It says then that the provisions of this section shall not apply to income credited or paid to the LIC, General Insurance Corporation, any other insurer, a business trust by a SPV. So if you remember, when an SPV distributes the dividend to the business trust, if you remember that chart, what did I tell you? There will not be any taxability in the hands of the business trust because this is a pass-through income. And therefore, there will not be any TDS under 194. Whether this dividend will be taxable in the hands of the unit holder? Yes. What is the taxability of this dividend in the hands of the unit holder?
Ma'am, repeat the question what you want.
The question
to
is,
ask.
what will be the taxability of this dividend in the hands of the unit holder? Yes. I'm trying to revise with you, all the chapters that we have done so far so that there is a linkage which is established. Yes. Do you recollect the chart?
Ma'am, taxable in the hands of unit holders.
Taxable in the hands of unit holder? There was a condition to that. What was the condition? It shall be taxable in the hands of unit holder only when the SPV exercises the option under
115 BAA.
correct. Yes, very good. So it will be taxable in the hands of unit holder only if the SPV opt for the concessional tax rate under 115 BAA. If the SPV is not exercising 115 BAA, then in the hands of the unit holder it will be, yes, it will be exempt. Are we clear?
Yes.
So it will be taxable in the hands of unit holder only when the SPV exercises the option under 115 BAA. If SPV does not exercise the option, if the SPV opts for the normal tax rate, then the dividend shall also be exempt in the hands of the unit holder. So when the business trust will pay the dividend to the unit holder, it will deduct the TDS under 194 if the SPV exercises the option under 115 BAA. Otherwise, it will not deduct. Are we clear? Yes or no?
Yes, ma'am.
Fine? Okay. So you have to remember these points. What about the interest that we so far discussed? The interest which will be paid by the business trust to unit holder. So the interest which is received from the SPV. I told you it is not taxable in the hands of business trust because it is a pass-through income. Whether it will be taxable in the hands of unit holder?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, it will be taxable in the hands of the unit holder. Fine. So this is about the 194. Now, next one which is there is 194A. Interest other than interest on securities. So it says any person not being an individual or an HUF who is responsible for paying to a resident any income by way of interest other than by way of interest on securities. So who is my deductor over here? Number one, any person other than individual or HUF. Number two, for individual or HUF, there is a proviso which is given. It says provided that an individual or an HUF whose total sales, gross receipts or turnover from the business or profession carried on by him exceed 1 crore rupees in the case of business or 50 lakh rupees in the case of profession during the financial year immediately preceding the financial year in which such interest is credited or paid shall be liable to deduct the income tax under this section. So any individual or HUF whose turnover is greater than rupees 1 crore in case of the business or exceeds rupees or gross receipts exceed rupees 50 lakhs in profession. Are we clear? So in that particular case, the deductor will have to deduct the TDS. In the financial year preceding the current financial year. So which is the year for which you will see the figures? Let's say I'm deducting the TDS for the financial year 24-25. So I will see the limits for the deductor for which year?
Financial year 23-24.
Yes, I will see for financial year 23-24. Are we clear? Yes. Then it says individual or HUF who is responsible for paying to a resident. So who is the deductee? A resident. Shall at the time of credit of such income to the account of the payee or at the time of payment thereof in cash by issue of check or draft or by any other mode, whichever is earlier, deduct the income tax at the rates in force. So, what is the timing of TDS? Credit or payment, whichever is earlier, shall deduct the TDS at the rates in force. Now, what will be my rates in force? So, rates in force, as I told you, are given in the Finance Act. Which talks about the rates in force. Again, here the rate in force is given as 10%. answer. My TDS shall be 10%. Then it says, if you see para 3, the provisions of subsection 3 shall not apply where the amount of such income, or as the case may be, the aggregate amount of such income credited or paid or is likely to be credited or paid during the financial year referred to in subsection 1 to the account of or to the payee does not exceed 40,000 where the payer is a banking company to which the banking regulation applies. 40,000 where the payer is a cooperative society engaged in carrying on the business of banking. 40,000 rupees on any deposit with the post office under any scheme framed by the central government. 5,000 in any other case. Now, what do we mean by where the payer is a banking company? When can the payer for the interest be a banking company?
When we have the FD in the banks,
When there is an FD in the bank.
term deposit.
Yes, correct. When the payer will be a cooperative society or the post office.
Ma'am, when there is a FD in a post office.
Yes, perfect. And what about post office? Yes.
Ma'am, I don't know about cooperative society. I'm talking about post office only.
Okay. Then what about the other case which is there? 5,000. So that is for rest. So any interest which is payable other than by the bank, by cooperative society, or by other than the post office, then in that particular case, my threshold of 5,000 will be there. So what is the threshold? Yes.
Ma'am, in this case, it means a businessman whose turnover is more than 1 crore and he pays someone to interest like 5,000 and more. He have to deduct TDS on it.
Yes, yes. So basically, here my threshold is for banks, cooperative banks, and post office. So basically, this will be basically what? Interest paid by banks, cooperative banks, the post office, it will be rupees 40,000. Interest by others, the threshold is rupees 5,000. Are we clear? Okay. Now what it says, provided that in respect of the income credited or paid, in respect of the time deposits with the banking company, the time deposits with the cooperative society engaged in the business of banking, and the deposits with the public company which is formed and registered in India with the main object of carrying on the business of long-term finance for construction or purchase of houses in India for residential purpose, and which is eligible for deduction under 3618. What was 3618? What was 3618? What was 3618? Yes. Yes, students, what was 3618? Faster.
Ma'am, it is deduction for the housing finance companies.
Correct. For the banks basically, which
Ye-
was in relation to, if you remember, 3618. It was a deduction which was specifically applicable with respect to the special reserve,
Yes,
which
ma'am.
was to be created in the case of the financial corporation and the banking company students. So basically what they are trying to say is, so any kind of public company to which 3618 is applicable, which is into the business of financing. So all these three companies where there are time deposits with the banking company, with a cooperative bank, or a public sector company which is into the long-term finance for the residential housing projects. The threshold of this 40,000 which is given shall be computed with reference to the branch of the banking company or the cooperative bank or the public sector company. So this limit of, or the threshold of 40,000 which is there, is applicable to the income paid by each branch of this banking company only with respect to the time deposits. Are we clear? So what they are saying is that the threshold limit will be calculated with reference to the total interest credited or paid by the banking company or the cooperative bank or the public sector company, and not with reference to each branch if the banking company has adopted the core banking solutions. What is a core banking solution? Any idea?
No idea, ma'am.
No
Actually, I
idea?
want to
Okay.
ask to you.
Okay. Let me explain what is this core banking solution. So core banking solution is basically a system which is a centralized banking software which is developed, which allows the customer to access their account from any branch. Now, if you want to deposit the check, let's say you have the account in, let's say your home branch, maybe in Agra. Now, for the purpose of your articleship, you are staying in Delhi. Now, you may be getting, let's say, stipend through the check. At least we used to get it. Now you may be getting it through the UPIs or, RTGS or account transfers. But let's say I have got the check. Now this check, can I deposit in Delhi branch of HDFC Bank? I can. Because the bank has implemented a core banking solution, which allows me to do a centralized banking. I can go to any branch and not only to my home branch. Right? I can withdraw from any ATM. Right? So that is the core banking solution. So if there is a core banking solution implemented by the bank, this threshold of 40,000 will be calculated at the bank level and not per branch level. But if the bank does not have a core banking solution, then I will have to calculate the threshold by branch. Are we getting this point?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So basically, let's take an example to understand this. Let me ask you this question. Let's say I have the fixed deposits with, let's say, 3 branches in Delhi. Dwarka branch, Janakpuri branch, Rohini branch. Now the bank has adopted the CBS. And the total interest which is paid to me is, let's say, 60,000 rupees with all the branches. So will the TDS apply or will the TDS not apply?
Ma'am, it's apply.
It will apply because the threshold of 40,000 has
3,000
crossed.
exceeds.
Correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And since the bank has adopted the CBS, the centralized banking system, the interest paid by all the branches will be considered and the threshold of 40,000 will not apply to each of the branch. Are we getting this? So if I have kept, let's say 3 lakh rupees as a deposit in each of these branch and I'm earning, let's say 60,000 in aggregate. So then in that particular case, I will not consider for each of the branch what is my interest. If my total interest with that bank in all the branches, I will calculate with respect to the bank level and not with respect to the branch level. Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So
Ma'am,
let's just, yeah.
ma'am, interest on current account, every business have a current account, right? So they are also charging interest. So
Yeah.
it is also covered here.
Yeah. It is also covered here.
Then it's mean a businessman is not required to pay complete because in a current account, businessman is paid interest to bank, right? So businessman is deduct TDS there on it.
No. So see, it will not apply to banking company. I'll tell you. There is an exclusion over here. We will see. If you
Okay.
see here, it says to such income credited or paid to any banking company. So if I pay interest to banking company, even on loans that we pay to the bank, do we deduct TDS? The answer is no. Because of this point. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
So threshold is applicable for the bank and not for individual branches of bank
Now connected to Harsha PC.
if bank has implemented the centralized banking system. Are we clear? Okay, so let's move ahead. Now, what it says is, provided also that in case of the payee being a senior citizen, the word 40,000 shall be considered as 50,000. So, if for a senior citizen is the payee, then in that particular case, the threshold will be rupees 50,000. Are we clear? For this, it will be still 5,000, but for this bank interest, post office interest, and the cooperative bank interest, it will be 50,000. Then it says the provisions of subsection 1 shall not apply to such income credited or paid to any banking company to which the Banking Regulation Act applies, or any cooperative society engaged in the business of banking, any financial corporation established by or under the Central State or Provisional Act, any LIC, Unit Trust of India, to any company or a cooperative society carrying on the business of insurance, any other institution, association or body or class of institutions which the central government may notify. To such income credited or paid by a firm to the partner of the firm. So any interest paid by the partnership firm to the partner, will it be subject to TDS under 194A? Answer is no. To such income credited or paid by a cooperative society other than the cooperative bank to a member, or to such income credited or paid by a cooperative society to another cooperative society. Now, what does this mean? In the first A clause, if you have seen, it says any income credited or paid to a cooperative bank. So, any interest which is paid to a cooperative bank is not subject to TDS. Any income which is credited or paid by a cooperative society to another cooperative society is also not subject to the TDS. Or any income paid by a cooperative society to its member is also not subject to the TDS. Are we getting this particular point? So which kind of interest are subject to TDS for the cooperative society? We'll read further to understand this. Okay. Then it says, if you read the next point, it says, to such income credited or paid in respect of the deposits made under the scheme framed by central government. To such income credited or paid in respect of deposits other than the time deposits with a banking company to which the Banking Regulation Act applies. What does this mean? What does this 7-point means?
Ma'am, pension?
No. How come pension here? Read it carefully. So what it's saying is that the TDS will not be applicable on the income paid in respect of deposits other than the time deposits with a banking company. So meaning if the deposits are in the nature of saving bank account deposit, right? On that, the TDS will not be applicable. So TDS will be applicable only on the interest on fixed deposits and the recurring deposits, which are considered as time deposits, not on the saving bank account deposit. So that's the reason why you never see the TDS on interest on saving bank deposit. Are we clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, because
Ma'am,
this is
monthly.
exclusion to exclusion. It says income. What it says, if you read the first point, it says the provisions of subsection 1 shall not apply. It shall not apply to any income credited or paid in respect of deposits with a banking company other than the time deposits. So exclusion to exclusion means an inclusion, meaning the interest on TDS will apply only on the income with respect to the fixed deposits. Yes, somebody had question?
Ma'am, monthly income plan is also there. That was a time deposit plan or it's a normal account is here?
See, monthly investment plans are usually kind of the fixed deposits plan only. So on that, the interest TDS will be applicable.
Ma'am, monthly investment, not monthly investment, monthly income on which we get interest on every month.
Yeah, but that is maybe part of the fixed deposit only. So we have to see how this monthly income plan, which is there, is basically on what kind of deposits you are getting it. If it is for the fixed deposit, which should usually be the case, or recurring deposit, you should be entitled, there will be, sorry, the TDS on those interests.
Okay, ma'am.
Yeah. Next one is to the such income credited or paid in respect of deposits with a primary agricultural credit society or primary credit society or a cooperative land mortgage bank or a cooperative land development bank. Again, deposits other than the time deposits with a cooperative society other than a cooperative society or bank referred to in subclause A engaged in the carrying on the business of banking. Now, tell me students, how do you reconcile this 7A, this 5 and this 3? How do we reconcile that? Read it carefully. 3 says any income paid to a cooperative bank is not subject to TDS. The 5 says any income paid by a cooperative society to the members or to another cooperative society is not subject to TDS. Then 7A says any income paid with respect to the deposits with a cooperative society other than the cooperative society or bank referred to in clause A, which is other than the cooperative bank, is again not subject to the TDS. So, if I have to say here, the TDS is not applicable on interest which is paid to a cooperative bank, okay, by a cooperative society to another cooperative society or to its members, okay. Then the interest which is paid in respect of the deposits other than the fixed deposits with a cooperative society. Other than time deposits with cooperative society. So therefore, TDS is applicable on interest paid by TDS is applicable on interest paid by a cooperative bank in respect of the time deposits. Are we getting it? So if a cooperative bank pays the interest on the time deposits, on the FD, then in that case, the TDS will be applicable. Are we clear? On the
Ma'am, time deposit to its member also included.
yes, I'll come to that point. Now, if the cooperative bank pays the interest to a member cooperative society, whether TDS be applicable? Yes or no? What do you think?
No, ma'am.
Why no?
In B point, ma'am, cooperative society to its member.
Yes, correct. So that is the reason why on this the TDS will not be applicable. Are we clear? Yes or no? Yes. So therefore, here TDS will not be applicable as paid to members. Are we clear about this? Yes or no? So here just you can write the additional points also. TDS is not applicable interest paid to bank partner by the partnership firm. Then Yes, then other I think we have already covered. Okay. Next one is to such income credited by way of interest on the compensation. Okay, 1 second. We'll come first to this point. If you see, there is this proviso also for the cooperative society. It says provided that a cooperative society referred to in clause 5. Which one was there in the clause 5? Where it was speaking about that if a cooperative society is giving the interest to a member or to the another cooperative society, it is not required to deduct the TDS. So cooperative society referred to in clause 5 or 7A shall be liable to deduct the income tax in accordance with the provisions of subsection 1 if the total sales, gross receipts or turnover of the cooperative society exceeds rupees 50 crores during the financial year immediately preceding the financial year in which the interest is credited or paid, and the interest or the aggregate of interest paid is likely to exceed or is more than rupees 50,000 in case of senior citizen or 40,000 in any other case. So therefore, here there is an exception. What is the exception? TDS is applicable with respect to these 2 points. Okay, what TDS is applicable even on the other deposits with the cooperative society or on the cooperative society paying to another cooperative society or to its members. If this is an exception, if the turnover of the cooperative society, the turnover or the gross receipts are more than rupees, how much? 50 crores. Okay. In the previous financial year to the current financial year. And so there are two conditions. Interest is greater than rupees 40,000. Rupees 50,000 for senior citizen. So in this case, where I have written that the cooperative bank pays interest to a member cooperative society, TDS is applicable is no, as it is paid to the members. However, if it is exceeding rupees 40,000 and the turnover of this cooperative society was paid the interest exceeds rupees 50 crores in the financial year 23-24, if you are looking at the interest for 24-25, then in that case the TDS will be applicable. Yes or no? Clear? Yes?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, perfect. Next is to such income credited by way of interest on the compensation on the amount awarded by the motor accidents claim tribunal. So on that the TDS is not applicable. To such income paid by way of interest on the compensation amount awarded by the motor accident claim tribunal, where the amount of the income or the aggregate amount of the income paid during the financial year does not exceed rupees 50,000. To such income by way of the which is paid or payable by an infrastructure capital company or infrastructure capital fund or infrastructure debt fund or public sector company or a scheduled bank in relation to the zero coupon bond, then on that, so interest on zero coupon bond is also not subject to the TDS under 194A. To any income by way of interest referred to in clause 23FC of section 10. What is 23FC of 10, if you remember? Yes. Can anybody recollect what is 23FC? We have done that. Yes, what was 23 FC? Yes. Interest paid by the SPV to the business trust. Yes. Yes, Satish. So interest paid by the SPV to the unit trust, on that the TDS will not be applicable. So if it is other than interest on securities, also if the interest is paid by SPV to unit trust, to the business trust, then on that the TDS will not be applicable. Are we clear? Okay, so this 193 is, 194A is over. Any questions so far with respect
Ma'am,
to 194A? Yes.
in motor accident claims, there is one point is there say that all the amount is exempted to any amount credited, and in next point they give the limit. So which is
Limit of
applicable?
50,000. Yes.
So ma'am, which is apply means
Yeah.
there
So
is a
basically
threshold
what
or
they
not?
say is that if the amount does not exceed 50,000, so on that the TDS will not be applicable. So any income credited by way of the interest on the compensation, which is on the amount awarded by the Motor Accidents Claim Tribunal, where the interest does not exceed 50,000, on that the TDS will not be applicable. Are we clear?
Ma'am, but in above point there is no limit.
Yeah, there is no limit, but I and J have to be considered in together, in total.
Yeah, okay, ma'am.
Okay? Yes. Any other question? Okay, fine. So this completes your 194A. Now there are few points with respect to the notification under 194A which have been issued by the central government. Now one is the in the case of the for example the fixed deposits made in the name of the registrar general of the court. So what happens sometime until the cases are decided, until the cases are pending, sometimes the courts ask the appellant to keep the amounts in the form of deposits, right? So it should not happen that the particular assessee is, flying away or fleeing basically. So to kind of hold him, they ask for the deposits, right? As a security. So when these securities are given to the court, right? Now these the securities are given in the form of fixed deposits. The amount are put into the fixed deposits. Now these fixed deposits are made in the name of the Registrar General of the court during the pendency of proceedings. Now the interest which is generated on that. So in whose name we will deduct the TDS. So who will be the payee for that TDS? Because you have to, deposit the TDS against some PAN, right? Otherwise, how will you deposit the TDS? To whom the credit will go? So there was this confusion on which the CBDT has come up with a circular. So the CBDT has said that till the court passes the appropriate orders, it is not known who will be the beneficiary of that security amount. The amounts also are unascertainable, that when this particular deposit will lapse. So in UCO Bank case, the Delhi High Court had held that the person who will be ultimately granted that fixed deposit amount, the security amount, would be determined only when the orders of the court are issued. So at that stage, only the tax can be deducted. So the CBDT has given this circular by accepting the judgment of the Delhi High Court, by clarifying that the interest on the fixed deposit receipts which are kept in the name of the Registrar General will not be subject to the TDS till the matter is decided by the court. Only once the court decides the matter, as to who will get that security money, whether the appellant will get or the respondent will get, based on in whose favor the judgment comes, and then only the TDS will be applicable on that interest. Until that, the TDS will not apply on the interest which is generated on that fixed deposits which are in the name of Registrar General of the Court. Are we clear? Is this point understood? Okay. Yes or no? Okay, fine. Students, yes or no? Okay, perfect. So with this, I'll suggest let's take a break and then we get back to the topic. Let's take a break of 10 minutes and then we start. Yeah. So now we'll move to the next section, which is 194B, winning from lotteries. Let's write down. See, students, these questions would be important from the TDS chapter, because you could get either a case law based question, or you could get a small question where they ask about the TDS applicability. So these are the sort of question you can expect from this particular chapter. And if you know these provisions well, these would be the cash marks for you, because what had happened, I'll tell you instance of my attempt. There was a very simple question which had come in terms of calculating the TDS interest on the late payment and late deduction of TDS. But since maybe I did not pay much of the attention, I thought it's so simple. Okay, I remember 1.5% is there for late deduction, late payment. And during the exam pressure, I got so confused that I replaced the late deduction interest with late payment interest and late payment with late deduction. So making a huge blunder and losing out the entire 4 marks. So, this could happen because we may not pay attention to that. So it's, very, very important for us to remember these small provisions, because this could be a cash mark for you, as I said. So if you remember these provisions, nothing like it, because what will happen is you will easily, because you have to start accumulating the marks. It's very difficult to fail in CA examination. Believe this statement for sure, because they will not set the paper. The ICAI is not there to fail you. I mean, believe it. So this is not something that they will set the paper in such a way that all of you should fail. It's not going to happen. They also have to clear the CAs. So the paper will have the clues for you to get 40 marks for sure. And when you focus on these smaller topics, what we try to do is we focus on the bigger chunks of topic. We have to figure, no doubt about it. But at the same time, we have to make a focus on the smaller topics so that we start accumulating the small marks and make to 40. So that is very important. So do not ignore these smaller topics. People think that, okay, I'll pay attention to PGBP, I'll pay attention to capital gain. No, you also have to pay attention to these topics, because the moment you will pay attention to small topics, those are easier ones, and those are easier to remember also, and those are easier to write there also. See, if a question comes on TDS, how much time you will spend? Maybe 7, 8, 10 minutes. But when a question comes on PGBP, you have to spend 30 to 45 minutes. Are you understanding the difference? And then you have to remember so much for already PGBP. But here, there is lesser chance of mistake also. So do not pay less attention to these topics. That's my only point to you, so that you start accumulating the marks. Okay. With that being said, let's start with 194B. 194B says the person responsible for paying to any person any income by way of winnings from any lottery or crossword puzzle or the card game or any other game of any sort, or from gambling or betting of any form or nature whatsoever. So the person responsible for paying to any person. Okay. So basically here, who is my deductor? Any person. Who is my deductee? Any person. Here, what is included? Winnings from lottery, crossword puzzle, card game, betting, right? Or gambling. Then what is the threshold given? 10,000 rupees. Shall at the time of payment thereof. So the timing of TDS is on payment. Deduct the income tax therein at the rates in force. So TDS is at the rates in force. Now what is rates in force for this? What will be my rates in force for this? There is also a section on this. Do you recollect? Yes, there is a section which is applicable on this. Who recollects?
Ma'am, 30%?
Correct. Yes. So under 194B, the rate in force will be 30% because which is the section which is applicable over here? Can anybody name the section number?
Ma'am, 115 triple B.
Correct. Yes. So 115 triple B talks about the winnings from the lotteries, crossword puzzles, and the games like the card games which are there. Right? So in those cases, the 30% tax is applicable. Are we clear? So here also on the TDS front, there will be the same TDS which will be applicable, which is the rate in force. So here the person who is paying you this income will have to deduct the 30%. Are we clear? So 115 double B tax rate is only going to be applicable over here. So TDS will be 30%. Are we clear? Now it says, in a case where the winnings are wholly in cash, only in kind, or partly in cash and partly in kind, but the part in cash is not sufficient to meet the liability of TDS in respect of whole of the winning, the person responsible for paying shall, before releasing the winning, ensure that the tax has been paid in respect of the winning. So basically, if I pay the winnings in the kind, I have to deduct the TDS as a payer and deposit to the government before releasing the winnings in the kind. That's what it is trying to say. It should not be the case that somebody may say that, okay, I'm paying in kind, therefore I cannot deduct the TDS. No, that can't be there. Are we clear? Any question, any doubt? Yes or no? Okay. Yes or no, students? This is very, very simple section. No problem over here. Fine. Next one is 194BA. Winnings from online gaming. So if you see 194BA is winnings from online gaming. It says, notwithstanding anything contained in any other provisions of this act, any person responsible for paying to any person any income by way of winnings from any online game during the financial year. So again, my deductor can be any person. Deductee can be any person. But deductee will be individual only, right? Because company cannot play game. Shall deduct the income tax on the net winnings in his user account computed in the manner as may be prescribed at the end of the financial year at the rates in force. Now, have any one of you played any game, online game, and know what is this basically user account by any chance?
No, ma'am.
No? Anyone else has played this online game?
No, ma'am.
No? Nobody. Okay. So see, these online games which are there, these are basically the platforms on which you can, go and play the games. Nowadays, if you, go on YouTube, this is like a lot after COVID has been present in India. If you remember, there was this game called as PUBG, or, there are so many different games which are there, on which you can create the account. They give you the cash rewards, they give you the vouchers, they give you kind of reward points which you can use to purchase the products. So there are so many kind of games which are like that existing, and this has in fact, as I said, increased after COVID a lot. Now what was happening is that people were earning money on these games and they were not paying any taxes, right? So there are multiple games which are present online on which you can go and create your user account. Okay. Now, for that purpose, this TDS section has been introduced, which is section 194BA. Now, this 194BA, which is there, this is applicable on the this is applicable on the winnings from the online game. So, the net winnings, we will talk about what is this net winning, but there is this tax rate which is also introduced separately on this online gaming, which is similar to what you had seen under 194B, right? Under 194B, there was winning from the lottery or the crossword puzzle, right? Whereas under this 194BA, there is this online gaming which is there. So under 115BB, under 115BB, there was this tax rate of 30%, which is there on the winning from any lottery, crossword puzzle, race horses, or card games which are there, or any sort of betting or gambling which used to happen. Are we clear? Similarly, there is a new section which has been introduced for the online gaming, which is section 115BBJ, which says that the tax on the net winnings from these online gaming shall be chargeable at the rate of 30%. At the rate of 30%. So here also the rates in force will be nothing but 30% only, which is the section 115BBJ. And with respect to that, there is a TDS provision which has been introduced under 194BA, which says that it will be at the rate in force. Now, how this has to be considered is something that we will have to understand, because the CBDT has introduced the guidelines with respect to the TDS on the 194BA. Are we getting this? So there are separate set of guidelines which are issued with respect to this. So that we will have to understand. But for now, what is the point over here? That on the any person paying the income on by way of the winnings on the online gaming has to deduct the TDS. Again, it says any person. So, there are a lot of gaming platforms which are established by the non-residents. So whether they will have to deduct the TDS, the answer is yes. They will have to deduct the TDS because it says any person. Are we clear? Yes or no? Now what are these TDS guidelines saying? Let us understand. So in the online gaming platform, what you have to do is, there is this website on which you can deposit certain money to play the game, right? Now let's say I deposit the 5,000 rupees. Now I will play with this 5,000 rupees, this game, and if I, let's say, win, there will be some amount which will be credited to my wallet. So there is the deposit which is made by me. Let's say I have won a game. So let's say 3,000 rupees was credited to my wallet. Are we getting it? Now, there could also be some sort of reward points, incentives, free points which may be credited to my wallet, which also may be worth, let's say, rupees 1,000. Okay, or which may not have any value also. So if there is no value, the amount will be nil. So based on that, I will calculate my closing balance. Are we getting this? And on this net winning, which is basically my opening balance, plus the amount that I have loaded in my wallet minus the withdrawals that I am making from my wallet will be considered as my net winnings. Are we getting this particular point? So this will be taxed. So let us take an example to understand this. So first of all, here the TDS will be 30%, which is section 115 BBJ. Okay, this was section 115 What is the timing of the TDS? At the end of the financial year. Here it does not say on the payment or credit. End of the financial year. Is there any threshold which is mentioned? There is no threshold which is mentioned over here. Okay. So here, how will we calculate the TDS? Let's say I have opening balance. This is I'm talking about my wallet. Okay. So opening balance is, let's say, 0. Let's say deposit in wallet is, let's say, rupees 5,000. Let's say the winnings that I have made are, let's say, rupees 3,000. Okay. And therefore my closing balance will be how much? 8,000. Let's say I withdraw this entire 8,000. Okay. So therefore my net winnings for the purpose of taxability and for the TDS will be what formula they have given under the Act. They have said the formula will be A minus B plus C. A minus B plus C. This is the formula that they have given. So, A minus B plus C. Now, this A means what? A means the amount withdrawn from the user account. Amount withdrawn from the user account, which is this. A. B is my aggregate of the non-taxable deposit made in the user account by the assessee. This is B. This is a non-taxable deposit made by the user. And C is the opening balance of the user account. This one. So therefore, my net winnings will be 8K minus 5K plus 0, which is nothing but this 3K. Are you getting this point? So on this 3K amount which is there, I will be charged the TDS. Are we clear? Yes or no? Any questions? Any doubt? Yes, clear? Now let's say I want to play now another game. let's say I want to play another game. Now again, let's say I deposit another 10,000 rupees. Okay, so let's say put it here. Another 10,000 rupees. Okay, for second game. Then I am, let's say, winning 5,000 in the second game. Right? So, or let's make it to 6,000 from the second game. So let's say my total winnings will be how much? 9,000. Okay. So this total opening balance is, my total will be 15,000. My total winnings will be how much? 9,000. And total closing balance will be how much? 16 plus 18, 24K. Now out of this 24K, let's say I want to withdraw the entire 24K only. Okay. So what will happen? What will be my net winnings in the case of second game? The net winnings in the case of the second game, what they are trying to say is, will be again A minus B plus C plus E. So now they are saying it will be A minus B plus C plus E. A is nothing but this amount, my withdrawal. Okay. B is nothing but my this amount, which is deposit in the wallet. C is my opening balance. C will remain as my opening balance. Then what is E? E is the net winnings which I have already taxed in the first withdrawal. So this will become my E. So therefore, it will be A is 24K minus 15K plus 0 plus 3K. 6K. This is what is getting taxed. Are we clear about this? Did you understand how are we doing this? Yes or no? Anybody has any question?
Ma'am, repeat once second formula, ma'am.
Yeah. So what is the second formula they are essentially trying to say is, they are saying the same thing. They are saying it will be A minus B plus C, but they are saying that you also add the amount which is already taxed, because you are seeing the cumulative or the aggregate amount. So the amount on which the tax is already paid, that you also reduce it. So that's the E amount, which is the 3K, which is I have already paid the tax on, which is basically this amount. So this amount also I'm trying to add because I'm now considering the consolidated figures and not this only figure. Are we clear? Yes or no? Any question? Any doubt? Yes?
Ma'am, how we get the data of E, or who will get the data of E in this case? It means one
So,
I play two games, two
yeah.
different platform.
Yeah. So that's a very good question. See, I'll explain you. What does this now rule say? Now rules talks about all these points. Okay, we'll get on to that. That's a very, very good and important question. If I am playing the games on the two different platforms, so then what do we do? So for that purpose, the CBDT has given the set of guidelines that how do we have to consider this A plus B, A minus B plus C plus E. Now, for that purpose, what it says is, that a user account which is there is considered for the purpose of this particular calculation. Now, whenever there are multiple user accounts, each user account shall be considered for the purpose of calculating the net winning and deposit, withdrawal or balance. Are we getting it? So, where there are multiple user accounts which are maintained, so then you will consider the each user account and you will calculate based on that. Now, it is also possible that I have the two user accounts I'm playing. There are, people who try to play from different user account on the same platform. And I might transfer my balance from one user account to another user account. But I have the account with the same gaming company. Then will it be considered as withdrawal or deposit of the amount? Answer is no. If I'm transferring my balance from one account to another, it will not be considered as withdrawal of the amount. Are we clear? Yes or no? Now, what if there are multiple wallets under one user? How will the net winnings will be computed? So the CBDT clarifies that the user account will include all the user accounts which are registered with that gaming company. How many wallets do you have? That doesn't matter. So whenever there are multiple user accounts, each user account shall be considered for the purpose of calculating the net winning. So basically, if there is one company, let's say there is PUBG, which is, let's say, having one gaming site. Now, for the purpose of calculating the tax, each of these user accounts have to be considered. So, deposit in any of these accounts, withdrawal from any of these accounts have to be considered. And based on that, the net winning will be calculated. So, you have to consider the aggregate of all the accounts which are there. Are we clear? Yes or no? Yes?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now, what if there is one gaming company, but he has 4 or 5 games running? But when the company will be deducting the tax, right? The tax will be deducted by a company and not by a gaming platform. Because the deductor has to obtain a TAN number. All of us know that there is a mandatory requirement that the deductors need to obtain the tax deduction account number, right? It's just like a PAN card, you have a TAN, right? So the deductor will be deducting the tax, will be filing the TDS returns under one TAN, but it can have multiple gaming platform. Then how will he deduct the TDS? So the CBDT says, then it is option given to the gaming company that they can deduct the tax for the purposes of 194BA for each platform separately. But in that case also, all the user accounts which are pertaining to one particular person in one platform need to be considered for the purpose of calculating the net winning. Are we clear? Yes or no? Yes or no, students? Fine. Is this clear?
Ma'am, it means second formula is used when a single user have multiple platform in a same company, or he have multiple accounts, right? Your wallet. Then second formula is applied.
No. So second formula is applicable when you deposit again into the user wallet. So you can deposit in the another account or in the same account also, but when you are depositing for the second time and withdrawing for the second time, so first time we have already considered the tax. Now again you are depositing and then withdrawing. So that time also we will use the second formula. So then we'll subtract the amount which has already been taxed because we are consolidating all the amounts together.
Okay, ma'am.
Fine. If you have multiple user accounts, the formula will still remain the same. So what you will do is, let's say for example, I will explain. Let's say we have two user accounts. Let's say user 1, user 2. Okay. So then in that particular case, let's say I have opening balance as nil. Then let's say I have deposits of 5K, 10K made in this account, or let's make it to 5K. Then let's say I have the winnings which are made into this account. Let's say in the one wallet I have earned 3,000, in second wallet I have a loss of 2,000. Right? So what will be my closing balance? 8,000 and 3,000, right? Yes or no? This my closing balance is 8K and 3K. Right? So total closing balance is 11K. So now what will be my net winnings? Let's say my withdrawal is also 11K. So how will you calculate the net winning? Please do it for me. This is multiple user wallet.
Ma'am, 11,000 minus
Yes. K is my
10
11,000.
is a withdrawal, total
Yeah.
withdrawal.
Minus.
Deposit this year 10,000
Yes.
and opening balance 0.
0. So what it will come to?
1,000.
1,000, which is nothing but the difference of this. Right? So this is my net winning and this will be chargeable tax. Are we clear? Yes or
Yes,
no?
ma'am.
Okay, perfect. So this is understood well. Okay, yes or no? Fine. Now, there are, gamers who play with very insignificant amount also. And they withdraw also very small amount. So for that, CBDT has given a relaxation that if the net winnings do not exceed rupees 100 a month, so then in that case, the deductor will not deduct the TDS. So if there are players who are playing with a very small amount and the net winnings are not exceeding rupees 100, so then in that case, there will not be any TDS. So they have given that kind of exemption. Are we clear about this section? Everybody clear? Yes?
Yes, ma'am.
Perfect. Okay. Now let's move to the next section, which is 194C. Payment to contractors. Sorry. 194BB, sorry, winning from race horses. Any person being a bookmaker or a person to whom a license has been granted by the government under the law for the time being enforced for horse racing in any race course or for arranging for wagering or betting in any race course, who is responsible for paying to any person any income by way of winnings from the race horse, being the aggregate of amount exceeding rupees 10,000, shall at the time of payment thereof deduct the income tax at the rates in force. Okay. So basically what they are trying to say is that if the winnings exceed 10,000, then the TDS will be under 194 BB at the rate of 30%. So deductor will be the bookmaker. Deductee is any person. TDS is again 30%, which is 115 double B. Same section which is applicable for crossword puzzle, right? And what is the threshold? 10,000. So here also there will be a TDS of 30%. Okay. Let's move to the next section, which is 194C. Payments to the contractors. Any person responsible for paying any sum to any resident. So who is the deductor? Any person, right? It says then paying to any sum to any resident. So deductee is resident. Okay. For carrying out any work, including supply of labor for carrying out any work. Now work is defined over here. What do we mean by work? Work shall include advertising, broadcasting and telecasting, including the production of programs for such broadcasting or telecasting, carriage of goods or passengers by any mode of transport other than by railways, catering, manufacturing or supplying a product according to the requirement or specification of a customer by using the material purchased from such customer or its associate, right? So what they are trying to say is that the work definition includes all of this. Now this is an inclusive definition, meaning these are just the illustrative examples and the work can be beyond this. Are we getting this? So what they are trying to say, any person responsible for paying any sum to any resident for carrying out any work which is defined under this explanation, that work shall include these examples. These are just merely examples, students. There could be any act which can be classified as work. In pursuance of a contract between the contractor and a specified person. Now, who is a specified person? Specified person shall mean the central government or any state government, local authority, corporation established by or under the Central Provisional Act, company, cooperative society, authority constituted in India, engaged in the purpose of dealing with and satisfying the need for housing accommodation, any society registered under Society Registration Act, trust, university established, government of a foreign country, any partnership firm or LLP, any person being an individual or a HUF or AOP or BOI. If such person does not fall under any of the preceding subclauses and the total sales, gross receipts or turnover from the business or profession exceed rupees 1 crore in the case of business or 50 lakh in the case of profession during the financial year immediately preceding the financial year in which a sum is credited or paid. Are we getting? So therefore here the deductor, which is what we have written, is any person. You have to write here a specified person, which includes the government, the firm, the cooperative society, the trust, then local authority, the company, foreign government, university, an individual or HUF or AOP or BOI if the turnover is greater than rupees 1 crore or gross receipts greater than rupees 50 lakh for the previous financial year. Are we getting it? It says the contract between the contractor and this specified person shall at the time of credit of such sum to the account of the contractor or at the time of payment in cash or by way of check or draft or any other mode, whichever is earlier. So therefore, the timing of TDS is credit or payment, whatever is the earlier. Shall deduct the TDS. What is the TDS that they have given? 1% where the payment or the credit is being made to individual or HUF. Okay? And for the rest of the cases, 2%. This is what we are talking about, the pay. Okay? So, the TDS is 1% or the 2%. Clear? No individual or HUF shall be liable to deduct the income tax on the sum credited or paid of the to the account of the contractor where the sum is credited or paid exclusively for the personal purpose of the individual or member of the HUF. So what they are trying to say is that there will not be no TDS if the payment to the contractor is by individual or HUF for personal purposes. And then they have given a threshold. The threshold is that no deduction shall be made from the amount of any sum credited or paid or likely to be credited or paid to the account of the contractor if the sum does not exceed rupees 30,000. So what is the threshold which is given? Rupees 30,000 to the contractor. Sorry, 30,000 is one time, or what this is, provided where the aggregate of the amounts of such sum paid or credited to the during the financial year exceed rupees 1 lakh. The person responsible shall be liable to deduct income tax under this section. So rupees 1 lakh annual. So if the one-time payment crosses 30 or during the year the payments to that particular contractor crosses 1 lakh. So any of these threshold crosses, you will be liable to TDS. So even if my payments are lesser than 30,000 when I am paying to the contractor, but if the total payments exceed 1 lakh, then in that case, I still have to deduct the TDS. Are we clear? Yes or no? Is this particular point clear? Now getting back to the definition of the work. Work here says, work shall include the advertising. Now here you have to understand simple points with respect to the CBDT circulars which are given. Now, the CBDT circulars talk about there are several issues with respect to the different points of the work that are given. Now, work includes the advertisement, but there is this scenario where the issue is that whether the payments which are made by the broadcasters to the production houses for production of the content or program are work contract or not? So, any idea what which ones are the broadcasters or who are the broadcasters basically? Yes,
Like TV channels, these are
correct.
broadcasters.
Correct. These are broadcasters. So, see what happens is that there are kind of, these TV channels which basically are playing this content, okay, or displaying the advertisements, or for that matter, displaying any kind of programs which are there. Now, the situation arises that they are making the payment to the content creators, right? Not the Instagram content creators, but we are talking about the specific program. For example, nowadays we don't have these television channels anymore in terms of, people are not viewing to that extent. But if you remember on Star Plus is the broadcaster. Now there will be so many programs that are telecasted. For example, these days we had this on Sony, we had this particular show called Kapil Sharma Show, or we had this Tarak Mehta on Sub, right? So these are the production houses, right, which produce the program. So the consideration is whether the payments which are made by the broadcasters, or maybe let's say by Sony to Kapil Sharma for production of the content, will it be liable for TDS under 194C? Because whether this is a work contract. So the CBDT has clarified that the payment for the production of the program as per the specifications of the broadcaster, where the program creator transfers the right of that program to the broadcaster, is yes, a work, because you are working according to the conditions which are given by the broadcaster. So let's say if Sony is telling Kapil Sharma to start a show or to play an ad, and if the rights of that show passes on to Sony, then yes, this is a work. And the payment which will be made by Sony to Kapil Sharma is going to be falling under the definition of work and will be liable for TDS under 194C. Because it is the Sony who has asked Kapil Sharma to produce a show like that. However, in a case where the broadcaster acquires only the broadcasting rights, which is generally the case. For example, if you see KBC, what you get is only the broadcasting rights, because the content is produced by a production house. There is no contract for carrying out of the work, because I'm not working for Sony. There is a separate production house. There is already a show produced. We are just giving you the rights to telecast that program. Therefore, that will not be liable for TDS under 194C. Are we clear about this distinction?
Ma'am,
Yes or
YouTube channel is also a broadcast.
See, on YouTube, what happens is, how is this arrangement with the YouTube work? Let us understand. That's again a very good question. So, in the case of YouTube, who is the creator? Who is the
User,
creator on YouTube?
who is a channel? Wow, जिसका channel है मैम, like different users have different channel.
Correct. So, for example, there was this person, Carrie Minati, who was very famous, right, on YouTube. Or there are so many other YouTube creators, for example, for travel or for, so and so kind of interest that you may have, for gaming, for every kind of sports. You have different creators. You have beauty creators, you have, home decor creators, whatsoever we call it. Now you have different channels to which you subscribe. Now this is a creator who is putting his content out on YouTube. Now how is monetizing the content? Number one, YouTube will play the advertisements in between, right? Now the advertisement that get played in between your video, on that you earn the revenue. You start earning the revenue on those advertisements. Now, whether YouTube, when it is making the payment to you, for what it is making the payment to you? YouTube is making the payment to the content creators for what purpose?
Ma'am, for more viewers, according to more viewers and subscriber, right?
See, YouTube pays the creator with respect to the money from the ads on their videos. So there's a YouTube partner program which provides these features to the content creators to earn the money from the ads on their videos which are getting played. Are we getting it? So YouTube, what it does is that if you have, let's say for example, certain level of subscribers, YouTube will allow you to play the ads, or YouTube will allow you to enter into this monetization program. So the main monetization program is through the advertising. So advertising revenue is generated when people will watch the ads that are running on those videos. So, there are two models on YouTube. When you go and watch any video on YouTube, you have an option that you can buy the YouTube Premium or you can go for a normal YouTube. If you want to buy YouTube Premium, there will not be any ads played on the video. It will be the normal video without any ads. So on those videos, there will not be any ad. But when you're watching as a normal video without subscribing to a YouTube Premium, so then the advertisement will get played. And the advertising revenue is generated when the people watch the ads that are running on the videos. This revenue from the ads is shared between YouTube and the creator. Are we getting it? So the advertisement companies are paying to YouTube. Fine. Advertisement companies are paying to YouTube for running the advertisements on the video. And YouTube is then sharing this revenue from the advertisement with the creators. Are we clear? So therefore the question is that when the advertiser will pay to the YouTube, he will have to deduct the TDS under which section?
194C.
Correct, because that is already included under the definition of the work. When YouTube pays to the content creator, under which section he will deduct?
It also come in 194C.
See, you are not running the advertisement income. You are getting the income from the YouTube, which is basically called as an affiliate income. Are we getting it? So that will be considered as a normal business income for the individual. That is not technically an advertisement payment which is being made. So the income is for posting the video or content creation, and then there is no definition of work. You are not earning YouTube is not paying you for the advertisement per se, it is paying you under the YouTube program. Of course, the revenue is based on the advertisements that are generating on that. But technically, it is not liable to TDS under 194C. Okay, if the YouTube says specifically that this is an ad payment which is being made to you, then yes, YouTube may deduct the TDS under 194C. However, if it is not as paid as the advertisement income only, then in that particular case, it may be deducted under the 194G. Are we clear? Yes or
Yes,
no?
ma'am.
Okay. Because you are there engaged in the content creation and not as the advertiser. So in that case, the TDS may be under the 194G. Fine. Any other questions? Any doubt? Okay. Yes or no? Fine. Now coming to the second point over here. Again with respect to the advertisement income. So the CBDT has also clarified that in case of the advertising business, there are two things which are involved. One is the client will pay to the advertising agency, and the advertising agency will pay to the television channel or the newspaper company, right? You always, if you want to, advertise on any TV channel or newspaper, you cannot directly go to Star Plus or now to YouTube and say, oh, I want to advertise. There is an advertising company involved in between. So when the client pays to the advertisement company, there will be TDS under 194C. Yes or no? However, when the advertising agency pays to the TV channel, whether there will be 194C which will be applicable or not. Yes.
Yes, ma'am, applicable because it for advertisement specific.
So CBDT has clarified that on the second type of payment, there will be no TDS under 194C, which the advertising company is paying to TV channel, because the payment is not for advertisement but for taking the slot on that TV channel for advertisement. The first type of payment is, yes, definitely a work contract. But on the second type of payment, when the advertising company is making the payment to the TV channel, there will not be 194C which will be applicable. Also, it will not be treated as a commission by the advertising company, because this contract is on the principal to principal basis and there is no agency business involved over here. The advertisement company has not taken any agency of Star Plus or Sony or Sub. So the CBDT has clarified that there will not be any TDS attracted on payments made by the advertising agency to the television company. Are we clear? It is not commission. There will not be TDS under 194C. However, in this context, there is one decision which is also applicable, which you need to know, which is also there in your module, which is in the case of Doordarshan television. Now, in that case, what had happened is, in the case of Doordarshan, it was a very different case from what we are discussing at this moment. The Doordarshan had basically paid the amounts to the advertising agencies for the purpose of the advertisements on the Doordarshan. So there was this company Prasar Bharati which is running this Doordarshan channel, right? Now for the purpose of telecasting the advertisement, the Doordarshan company had entered into agreement with the advertising agencies, and the agencies had to give the minimum business to the Doordarshan. And the agreement therefore had provided that whatever business you will give, 15% will be your commission. And the balance you will pay to us. So in that case, the Supreme Court had noted that here there was a specific agreement for giving them the commission and they were appointed as agent for Doordarshan. So yes, there will be TDS under 194H, which is on the commission income. But yes, still there will not be any 194C which will be involved. Because this is an agency contract. So there's a specific TDS provision for that. And that will be applicable, not 194C, which is a work contract. Are we clear? Yes or no? Is this particular point clear? Any questions to any student?
Ma'am, but here is also 2 points. First, advertisement company give some amount, and Doordarshan is also give commission. Commission is applicable there.
Yeah.
Then in a
So
full
when-
amount, it's a work contract.
Yes. So when this client will pay to the advertising company for running the advertisements on Doordarshan, on that 194C will apply. When this advertising company will retain certain amount and pay the balance amount to Doordarshan on that commission portion, 194H will be applicable. Okay?
Yes, ma'am.
So now work shall include, as I said, advertising, broadcasting and telecasting, including the production of programs for such broadcasting or telecasting. So as I said, if I am broadcasting and telecasting and the programmer is giving me all the rights, the programmer is creating the content based on the broadcasting company's say and passing on all the rights, then it will be a work contract. But if the programmer is retaining the rights and just giving me the telecasting rights, then in that case, 194C is not applicable. Carriage of goods or passengers by any mode of transport other than railways. Now, in this context, if you see, what they have said is, no deduction shall be made from any sum credited or paid or likely to be credited or paid during the previous year to the account of a contractor during the course of business of plying, hiring or leasing goods carriages where such contractor owns 10 or less goods carriage at any time during the previous year and furnishes a declaration to that effect along with his PAN number to the person paying or crediting such sum. So what they say is on the transport, there will be the TDS. However, if the business of the transporter has less than 10 goods carriage at any time during the year, he should not own at more than 10 at any time during the year. If he owns more than 10 even at one point in time, TDS will be applicable. So he has to give this declaration to the deductor with his PAN number, and then in that case the TDS will not be applicable. Are we clear? So in that case, the TDS will not be applicable. So TDS is applicable on the transporters only when they have more than 10 goods carriage. Otherwise, the TDS will not be applicable. Clear? Now, in this case, again, there is one particular CBDT circular which is again mentioned as a part of your module. Is when the owner or the seller of the natural gas sells the natural gas as well as transports the gas to the purchaser, where the ownership of gas will pass on to the buyer, right? Only when the gas is delivered. So whether this is a contract for sale or whether this is a works contract. So the CBDT has clarified through a circular that here, since the gas seller, natural gas seller, is selling the gas as well as transporting the gas, right? Here, there is a combined contract together. So here, TDS will not be applicable under 194C. However, if the gas owner is paying the transportation charges to a third party, to let's say a truck operator, then on that amount TDS will be applicable. But if he is only transporting the gas along with selling the gas, there will not be any TDS. If you cannot bifurcate the charges between the two. Are we clear? Similarly, if let's say for example, I am a transporter. Now I am entering into a contract with a cement company for transporting the cement to various places in India. Now I am a transport company, but I do not have sufficient vehicles. So there is this huge fleet of transport companies which tie up with each other. In case I do not have vehicles at present, I will subcontract my service to another transport company. But I will only remain in touch point with the cement company. That other company will not get in touch. I will say, okay, I will do it, but I'll pass on the work. It happens in our CA business also. Let's say if I get an income tax return filing and I'm already full with work, I have an audit, let's say assignment, which is coming to me, and I'm already full with work. Now, what I'll tell to client, okay, we'll do it, but we may outsource it to some other CA firm. But that will the other CA firm will be in touch with the client? The answer is no. The client will remain as my client. Right? The client will pay to me, and then I will pay the amount to the other CA firm by retaining my commission. So this is a case of a subcontract. So the contract which is entered by the cement company is with the original transport company only. The liability remains mine to get this work completed. There is no contract between the actual transporter and the cement company. Right? So therefore, in that case, it has been held that I am not acting as a facilitator between the cement company and the truck operator, because there is no contract between them. The contract of the transportation is with me and the cement company. So payment made by me to the transport company is again a subcontract. And on that payment, again 194C will be applicable, because a subcontract is also included in the contract. So if you see here, it says contract shall include a subcontract. So on the subcontract also, TDS under 194C will be applicable. Fine. Then they have included catering, and last one is manufacturing or supplying a product according to the requirement or specification of a customer by using the material purchased from such customer. Basically the job work. When I purchase the material from the customer, perform the work on that and give it the final product back to the customer, it's a subcontract. It's a job work. On that, 194C will be applicable because it is classified as work. But does not include manufacturing or supplying a product according to the requirement or specification of a customer by using the material purchased from a person other than the customer. So where I am performing a manufacturing or supply on a product, right, based on the requirement of the customer. So I will always do manufacturing, let's say for example, based on the customer's requirement. But here I am not purchasing the product from the customer, I am purchasing the product from some third person. So let us understand two scenarios. Let's take the first case where, let's say for example, there is this textile company, or let's say a fashion designer, right? Now fashion designer does what? Fashion designer will, let's say that, okay, I will stitch a wedding lehenga for you. Okay. Now I am a client. I have gone to this fashion designer and I say that, okay, I want a wedding lehenga to be designed for me. A hypothetical example, right? Now, let's say this fashion designer is maybe Manish Malhotra, Sabyasachi, whatever you say. Okay. Now, what they would do is, whether Sabyasachi will sit and, design the lehenga, the answer is no. They will give this contract to the third person. They will give this material. The material will be, let's say, procured by Sabyasachi Manish Malhotra, which is the fabric. Now, this fabric will be given by Manish Malhotra to the workers, who may not be his workers, maybe third party, for undertaking the karigari or the designing on that fabric. This is a job work. These workers may be owned by some third entity only. This is a job work because the fabric belongs to the Manish Malhotra or Sabyasachi, right? Now, if let's say, for example, in this work, the payment which will be made by Manish Malhotra to these third company from whom they are undertaking the design on the fabric will be works contract. And TDS will be there under 194C because they are manufacturing or supplying a product according to the requirement of Manish Malhotra by making a material purchase from the Manish Malhotra only. Let's take a second case. Let's say Sabyasachi does not purchase the fabric. He tells the another company to purchase the fabric, make a design on that, and then give me the final piece of lehenga. This will be a contract of sale and not a works contract or job work. So where the job worker, where the workers are manufacturing or supplying a product according to the requirement or the specification of the Manish Malhotra. But by purchasing the material themselves, by purchasing the raw material themselves, not from Manish Malhotra, then it will not be a works contract. Are we clear, students? Yes or no? Is the distinction clear to you, everybody?
Ma'am, it is little difficult and some confusing.
It's not difficult. See, understand this thing. See, if Manish Malhotra is saying to a third company, because see, most of these designers will not design the lehenga on their own. It's just the brand tag which is there. Of course, they have the designing in mind, but they will not sit and design the fabric because for that they have these karigars. Now, if they don't have their own karigars, they will hire the third company who has the karigars inside it. Right? Now, when they will say, okay, we will give you the threads because they are big designers, they are very particular about the quality of the threads used, the quality of the cloth or the fabric which is used. What they will tell is that, look, we will give you the fabric, we will give you the design, we will give you the threads. Right? Now you will have to just stitch this fabric or design this fabric, weave this fabric according to our design that we are giving to you. This is a works contract. Right? This is falling within the definition of work because it is saying manufacturing or supplying a product according to the requirement of the customer by using the material purchased from the customer. This is the definition of work. So when Manish Malhotra will pay to this company who has the job workers, this will be subject to TDS under 194C. Is this part clear up till now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now let's say in a second situation, when Manish Malhotra says that, look, I am not in between. I am just, taking up a contract with the customer. Customer is requiring a wedding lehenga. This is our design. I want this design only. Like I want a, let's say, floral lehenga. Now this company is liable to, purchase everything. The fabric, the thread, everything will be taken care by the company who is going to weave on that lehenga. In that case, it is a contract for sale and not a job work because I'm not taking the material from Manish Malhotra. This company will buy the lehenga fabric, will buy the threads, will just make the design in accordance with the requirement of Manish Malhotra. But everything they will do it on their own. They are not purchasing the material from Manish Malhotra. So in that case, it is not the job work. And on this payment, which will be made by Manish Malhotra, this company, there will not be TDS under 194C. Because the material is not provided by Manish Malhotra. Is this clear?
Yes, ma'am.
So most of the companies in terms of these fabric designing, in terms of, bags that you purchase, the fashionable bags, the handbags. If you see Gucci, Prada, Louis Vuitton, all of these big design houses which are there, right? Do you think they sit and design, they sit and, stitch the bags and make the entire bags? The answer is no. They outsource this work. They may just give the material sometime to the, because they are very particular about the kind of quality of the cloth that they are using in their bags. Same goes with the shoes. Same goes with any of the kind of clothes that you, apparels that you are wearing. All the big houses function on the same model. The H&M, Zara, whatever you name it, they work on the same model. If you ever pick up these cloths from H&M, Zara, you would see made in Bangladesh. Whether H&M and Zara are based out of Bangladesh, the answer is no. These are the foreign companies. But they outsource their work in Nepal, in Bangladesh, in Vietnam, where these clothes get stitched. This is a kind of job work which every entity does. Most of the brands that you will see, foreign companies brand, the products may be made in India. Because of this. Are we clear? Any questions so far? Yes, any
No,
doubt,
ma'am.
any question?
Clear, ma'am.
Okay. Last point is, if you see here, they say, where any sum is paid or credited for carrying out any work mentioned in clause E of clause 4 of the explanation. Clause E was basically this only. Manufacturing or supplying of product according to the requirement of customer. So where any sum is paid or credited for carrying out any work for the job work, tax shall be deducted at source on the invoice value, excluding the value of material if the value is mentioned separately in invoice, or on the whole of the invoice value if the value of material is not mentioned separately. So if the value of the material is mentioned separately in invoice, you will exclude that. You will just pay the TDS on the service charges. If the value of the material is not put separately in the invoice, on the whole of the invoice value, the TDS will be deducted. Clear? So let's move to the next section. 194D, Insurance Commission. It's again very simple section. It says any person responsible for paying to a resident any sum by way of remuneration or reward, whether by way of commission or otherwise, for soliciting or procuring insurance business, including business relating to the continuance, revival, or renewal of the policies of insurance, shall at the time of credit of such income to the account of pay or at the time of payment in cash or by any other mode, whichever is earlier, deduct the income tax at the rates in force. So again, what they try to say is that for the insurance commission, if you have paid for the insurance commission, because there are a lot of businesses which take these agency for different insurance, right? Insurance company. So in that case, if you are paying for insurance commission, the TDS will be 5% in case of the resident. In case of domestic company, the rate will be 10%. Just write it. And the threshold which they have given is 15,000 rupees. So, section 194D. Insurance commission. Deductor is any person. Deductee is whether any resident is written, the answer is no. Resident is written, sorry, yes. So it's a resident. TDS is 5% for resident and 10% for domestic company. Clear? Threshold is 15,000. Timing of TDS, payment or credit, whichever is earlier. Clear? Next one is 194DA, which is also very similar. Any person responsible for paying to a resident under any sum under a life insurance policy, including the sum allocated by way of bonus other than the amount not includable in 1010D, shall at the time of payment deduct the income tax at the rate of 2% on the amount of income comprised therein. The amount paid under the life insurance policy, if you remember, we have already discussed the taxability of that. Under which head this is taxable? Yes, students. Under which head this is taxable?
And it is income from other sources.
Correct. Income from other sources. And what is the threshold after which this is taxable? What is the threshold? Yes, students.
2.5 lakh, ma'am.
Correct. For TDS, the threshold is given as 1 lakh, 100,000 rupees if you see. But for the taxability, the threshold is 2.5 lakhs. So beyond 2.5 lakhs, the amount will not remain as exempt under 1010D. If it is less than 2.5 lakh, then in that particular case, what will happen is this will remain exempt under 1010D, and therefore the TDS will not be applicable. So if amount exempt under section 1010D, TDS not applicable, because it says other than the amount not includable under 1010D. Are we clear? And there the timing of taxation is payment. Is this clear?
Yes.
Yes or no? Okay. Next one is 194E, payment to non-resident sportsman or sports association. So they say where any income referred to in 115 BBA is payable to a non-resident sportsman or an entertainer who is not a citizen of India, or non-resident sportsperson or association. The person responsible for making the payment shall at the time of credit or at the time of payment, whichever is earlier, deduct the income tax at the rate of 20%. So this is income which is referred to in 115 BBA. Again, this section you will learn in detail in the international tax class. But just let me tell you briefly where the total income of any assessee being a sportsman who is non-resident and not a citizen of India includes the income by way of participation in any game in India or sport in India, advertisement or contribution of articles to any journals or newspapers, if he is earning income out of that, or if there is a non-resident sports association which is earning income in the form of any guarantees amount paid or any sports being played in India, or there is an entertainer who is again a non-resident and non-citizen of India who is receiving the income from this performance in India. In those cases, the TDS will be deducted at the rate of 20% under 194E. Also, there will be tax under 115 BBA. So this you will learn in detail in the international tax class. Next section is 194EE, which is payment in respect of deposits under National Savings Scheme. So the person responsible for paying to any person under any amount referred to in 80CCA. 80CCA amount is basically the pension amount. Shall at the time of payment deduct the income tax at the rate of 10%, and there will not be any deduction if the amount is less than 2,500 rupees. Okay, so just write down 194 EE payments in respect of National Savings Scheme, NSC. Okay, so the person responsible for paying amount referred to in 80CCA. What is 80CCA? Yes, what was 80CCA? The amount which is withdrawn from this NSC. Okay, so TDS is how much? How much is the TDS they have said? 10%, and threshold is 2,500. Timing will be at payment. Is this clear, students? Yes or no? Any questions? Any doubt? Okay. Yes. So with this, I think we will just stop here and we will continue in the next class based on what we have discussed so far. You have to just revise and we will solve few examples also with respect to 194DA, which is insurance, life insurance policy. So please revise and come with respect to the life insurance policy at least so that we can discuss in the next class. Okay. So see you in the next class. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you,
you.
ma'am.
Thank you. Yes.